here. I know there are probably a lot of entrepreneurs in this room. I know that. Well, our next speaker is an entrepreneur who, wow, he's done it all. He's got extensive knowledge in ERP and mobile software. He's done a lot of consulting and management, and he is also, through it all, maintains a passion for innovative ideas, and not just that, but changing the status quo. He's the co-founder and CEO of Bezlio, which is one of our platinum sponsors, so I'm really sucking up. Please welcome Adam Ellis.
As you all noted, Adam Ellis with Bezlio. We're actually an Ohio-based company out of Akron, Ohio, and we've been a consulting shop for 15 years, and within the past 2 years, we've really pivoted our company around this piece of software that I'm going to be talking about in a moment here. So you'll know that we're a software startup because I am wearing the official uniform of a software startup, so right down to the shoes. So. No flip-flops, yeah. You can only get away with that in the Bay Area. Just a quick show of hands. We've had some P21 folks here. Who all is running Epicor P21 out in the audience here? Is that a pretty good representation? Some other systems, maybe Infor-based software. Do we have any of those? SAP? Yeah, cool. All right, cool. All right, so we're good here. So change the title of our deck just a little bit here. Turning field service workers into e-commerce agents. So this is a bit of a switch up from some of the other content we're talking about, where so far I've been talking about your website bringing orders in, but you got a whole lot of people who are walking out and interacting with your customers face to face, that hand-to-hand combat. And how do you go about turning those into people who are driving e-commerce as well? So, all right, first of all, let's talk a little bit about me. We already get a little bit of this, but I am the founder and CEO of Bezlio, a mobile app development platform for enterprise data applications. We co-founded that back in 2002. I've been doing this for 20 years myself, and in 2016, we pivoted our business around this Bezlio product. So more and more manufacturers, distribution are transforming their service departments from cost centers into new revenue generators. You talk about the idea of how do you compete against the Amazons of the world, things like that. Well, part of it is by outdoing them on the service side. And in that case, we're going to talk about that a little bit more here. So first off, why would you do that? Well, for one thing, there's money there. 46% of manufacturers cited that improved profitability as a principal motive behind adding value-added services. There's money on the table there, you're not taking it, go ahead and do it. 72% of them are transitioning to or already operate service as a profit center. And for a fair number of these companies, service will be one of their primary sources of revenue within the next 8 years. So we have a good example of that actually within one of the use cases here. We're fortunate that we have actually a couple Bezlio use cases here, and one of which has to do with customer managed inventory, where you got inventory on site at a location, you're going out there refilling it periodically, and how do you turn that into an e-commerce opportunity? First off, let's talk about what that looks like. Distributors have customer stocking arrangements to keep on-site inventory available on site. They're repairing or refilling warehouse shelves, vendor machines, and other stocking points, and managing or inputting customer orders, providing updates, tracking utilization. So you basically have this arrangement where your inventory is there, they're depleting it, you're keeping it stocked up. So increasing online revenue via field service is great, but there's a problem. Few manufacturers, and every time I use manufacturers here, I'm also going to talk about distributors, have the technology solutions in place to do it efficiently. So first off, let's talk about the technical challenge with it. There's 90% stating that improved field service performance is a priority, but 61% of them are still using things like spreadsheets despite the desire for new technology. And 37% of them are using paper-based systems to track customer information. Pair that with some of the restrictions around the technology. So we actually heard a little bit about this when Tom was speaking earlier. 87% of companies have, you don't just have one system. 87% of companies have 3 or more systems that encompass things like sales, service, finance. So you got to kind of mash all that up to kind of get the whole story. 80% of business software today is still operated on-premise. So when you talk about something like P21 or some of the other ERP systems that are out there, it lives inside your 4 walls pretty frequently. If maybe you purchase a cloud, there are cloud packages that are out there, but maybe they're not as good at the distribution functions you're looking for. You solve first for your primary business use case, but a lot of times that sort of functionality, when it extends the 4 walls, starts to lack. And all this adds up to an average of 7.5 hours wasted per week due to no integrated mobile access. Karthik had the good slide up just talking about how you expand that out for a warehouse employees, where their inefficiency is to walking to a terminal that's nearby. Imagine how much worse that is when you have an entire workforce of people out in the field and they don't, their nearest solution is popping up on their laptop, doing a VPN and loading up their ERP system or something like that. So that adds up to an awful lot of wasted time and human potential there. So the bottom line, companies need to empower their remote workers to secure these revenue-generating field transactions, and that all begins with mobile data access. And when you have an opportunity to produce revenue in the field, it's crucial that you have access to customer data right there. So we're talking about revenue creation, we're also talking about employee empowerment here, where you've got all this great data in your back-end systems. How do you get it in the hands of the people that need it when they need it? So a few of the things why you might, think about having something like that. One would be inventory. What is available? Are you promising something that you don't have in your warehouse? Is this piece of inventory is it set for being deprecated? There's a whole lot of reasons why empowering your staff with that up-to-date information is of crucial importance. Orders. So not only looking up historic orders to understand before you go into a meeting if you're going to get ambushed about details on that, but also taking orders right then and there when you're in front of a customer, or at least enough of the details to fill in an order appropriately when you get back to the office. Time tracking. If you're using service in the field as a way to drive revenue, it becomes really important that you have a way to track that and it punched back in your back-end systems to account for billable time or just cost of your delivering services to your accounts. So it's super important. And lastly, payments. We think a lot about an e-commerce site taking payment right now, but I'm sure you've had service before from a plumber or something like that where they run the credit card right on a device in front of you. So if you're really aiming for the least friction setup with your customers, how to remove all those barriers, well, that's one spot you can take it right there. So what kind of data is required to ensure field teams actually have what they need to generate revenue in the field? First off, real-time mobile access, and using the devices preferably that they already hold in their pockets. We're all out there spending $1,000 plus on these great iPhones nowadays that are more powerful than our desktop computers. So why the heck aren't we able to use them for the sort of stuff that we're trying to do here? E-commerce processing. Again, we talked about whether you are using a web portal that is kind of rendering nicely on that device or some sort of more bespoke thing. The ability to take an order with that thing in your pocket really bodes well to capturing revenue opportunities that may have otherwise gone lost. Inventory analysis, so not just looking up the inventory, but also being able to update from any device at any time. This is, if you've got a inventory stocking program with one of your customers and you're on site out there saying, well, okay, there's 5 on the shelf here, go ahead and do a replenish order for another 5, whatever that is. So having all that handy for you. And also access to all of the relevant documentation to help them do their job. Purchase orders, invoices, receipts, specifications for product that you've sold to them, all that sort of stuff that might live back in your home network. It's there, and you just need some sort of way to get it. So, all these little things kind of get into how you empower your employees to kind of best have what they need to do their job. So mobility is a solution, but what must the solution include to ensure that field reps can make the most of their data for e-commerce? We already talked about payment processing. That's an easy one. Next, we got order signatures. So this is actually another one that Jurgens actually makes use of. When you're on site somewhere, and again, you've used you've had a plumber or something like that do service for you before, they'll have you sign right on the screen. So why not be able to make that part of your workflow and capturing signatures right when they happen, punching them back in your system that we can get included in all the paperwork. Notifications and alerts. So as opposed to requiring that your staff stay on top of daily reports and try to find the gaps, having a system that pushes notification, hey, this customer is about to run out of this. This customer just put in an issue regarding a need to have you out there. Getting that to them, right where they're at drives behavior to move people where you need them to. Then lastly, offline. This is one of the hardest parts when you get to web-based solutions, and this is part of where I'm going to get into what we're all about. You probably have experienced, cell service is a lot better nowadays than it used to be, but a lot of times when you might be in a facility or something, you get into the no service zone. So offline, you don't want your ability to service your customers to stop where cell service stops. So offline mode is crucial to be thinking about with regards to how an ideal solution to empower your team should work. So now that we've covered the importance of data for e-commerce focused teams, where do you actually begin? Well, first off, some of the tools that already exist that can help. Don't invest in an expensive system or outsourcing it to somebody to develop something from scratch. That's what our business used to be for 15 years, where people would come to us and say, hey, Adam, I understand all this sort of stuff you're talking about. I want that. And we would hand them a hefty six-figure bill to develop a custom app for them that did all this sort of stuff. And a lot of folks don't realize that there has been a development in the world of technology that really shortcuts that whole process. And it's something called low and no code. You're probably not going to have heard that term yet. You will hear that term more and more frequently as time goes on. In short, this is not something new. I'm going to dial this back to something we're all going to be very familiar with. Y'all think about Microsoft Access and how that thing used to work. You would go in there, make your own little databases, drag and drop some stuff onto it. It would bolt to your existing systems. Both developers and non-developers could use it to make whatever they needed. Low and no code is kind of the next gen of that thing. And it's basically saying, all right, imagine the same sort of idea, but it's building an app for your phone. So that's the idea. So if you think about all that sort of stuff you would have did back in the day with Microsoft Access, and now you could do that with a phone, that's exactly what we're all talking about here. And it's all about just making quick and easy mobility solutions. So just like with the CRM and ERP example that Tom had mentioned, another thing you want to think about with these platforms is, they take care of the data mashup for you. So as opposed to developing the one-off integrations in between lots of different systems, including things that might be out in the cloud, like your e-commerce site. Low, no code is all about doing that mashup for you, making it easier. Functionality matters, but emphasize security just as much. You certainly don't want to just open up a gaping hole in your network and let anybody and everybody in there to do their stuff when you're talking about all this data here. And remote read and write and offline modes are just absolutes with this. So with flexible mobile solutions in place, field teams will be empowered to and enabled to grow product revenue at every customer touch point. So kind of tie all this in here, Bezlio. So Bezlio is one of these low-code platforms. We developed it where there's basically three parts to it. You've got a native app that lives on all your devices. Obviously, you have to have that. You have a web designer where you do all that drag and drop stuff, a la the Microsoft Access days. And then lastly, you've got this little agent you install inside your network that plugs directly into all your backend systems, whether it's ERP, CRM, accounting, cloud, Magento, all that other sort of stuff. It takes care of connecting, mashing it all up, and making it available for that web designer. Now, truth be told, that little web designer, it could be used by anybody with some basic HTML experience. That's how it kind of works. The drag and drop tools are just writing HTML code for you, so it's nothing fancy beyond some of the e-commerce projects you may have seen on the day. But most of our customers, the way they operate with us is we just drop in pre-made solutions for them because we've done it. So when you talk about, hey, I want to take an order in the field, or hey, I want to empower my sales reps to have access to all the things we're talking about out in the field, we already got that. Don't worry about reworking that. You might need to point it to your systems, but we've already got that covered. So, but it's great for, what we find it's ideal for is when you're talking about the field service side. You've got a live connection to your back-end systems, and you're able to track and get all this live information in real time. So where the lowest hanging fruit on that is the kind of things where you're gathering revenue at the moment it's happening, and it doesn't get closer to that than doing some of the field service side of things. Field sales can also easily place orders for their customers, so they can just take an order right in the field, even if they're offline. So that's a big important aspect to it. All data for those orders can be accessed and updated remotely with full offline support. Keeping in mind, this is punching right into your live backend systems. If you've got a customer service person sitting at their desk, they hit refresh on their screen and boom, that order's there. We're not talking about some sort of thing you've got to develop a whole synchronization to. And for folks using products by either Epicor or Infor, we've got, I mentioned some of those drop-in solutions. You can just grab those day one. Not only do we even have the thing you install on the front end side, we've also got all the wired up stuff on the back end. So you don't need to worry about going to that web designer at all. We got you covered. Anybody else, there might be a little bit more effort to it, but being a low-code platform, it lives up to its standard where you're not going to spend a fortune to wire it up to it. It's kind of, you're just doing the last 10% to kind of get it there. And again, that's rapid mobile app development. So that said, let me open this up to questions. We've got a lot of, this can kind of be a big, heady topic when you think about all the potential things you can get to, so yeah.
Great product.
Thank you.
Does it also, many larger companies have to go through approvals and so forth,
Yep.
extra purchases, so checkout wouldn't
Yeah.
be possible. Is it possible that it can send quotes to be available within commerce as well for approvals?
Yeah. So, a lot of what, that's a lot of times when we see orders taken in the field, it's always a question of like, does it go as a quote or an order? So it's really, were you P21 or were you, what's this? Okay, got it. Yeah, so it could really, without a doubt, a lot of those kind of look the same. What the difference with quotes might be multi-quantity potentially and different price points and all that. But yeah, absolutely. The gist of it is that when you think about this online designer, you basically have, this kind of a mock-up of how it might look here. This is all, made to be tweaked. Right, so if you want to go in and tap on that line and fill in all the different breakpoints and prices, or say these are to be quoted on the back end, that's all without a doubt. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Someone's placing an order. Do you have a catalog already installed on the app, or how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So what you would do, part of the technology is baked into Bezlio when you have a screen out like this, whether you're dropping in a pre-made one we've done or you're making it even from scratch. You're basically pointing it to your catalog and what all the fields you need are. Obviously part number, price, description, maybe whatever other custom fields you might want in there. And when you're pointing it there, there's a single checkbox that basically said this is offline enabled. And when you do that, what happens is it will remember last time it grabbed that data, it just has it. So if you're live, if you've got cellular signal, it'll grab it fresh. You want it fresh if you can. But otherwise, it just gives you the last version of that. I will say that, with that, we have been very good at like making our underlying structures that save this as absolutely efficient as possible. But when you have a catalog of maybe like 100,000 parts or something like that, you might want to be judicious about the number of fields you're carrying into it, purely for local device storage, especially if you have a BYOD with some of your reps out in the field. They might have to uninstall Candy Crush or something like that. Yeah.
Are you ERP agnostic, or you primarily work with Epicor and Infor?
Yeah, so we are ERP agnostic. The way that the agent that lives inside your network operates, it operates on a plug-in based architecture. So what that this fancy way of saying is that it connects to any database, it connects to any sort of cloud service, and things you might not even think of like Salesforce or anything else like that. We've got all these little plugins for it. So at the database level, you could talk to most any ERP system that way. When you get into some of the specifics, why we specifically, say Epicor and Infor are like ones that we have in our wheelhouse, is we actually have very specific plugins for those that basically kind of make things a little even easier, basically. It's sort of like with P21, they've got the API. We're working to kind of wrap that into another layer that just makes that easier than going through the database even. So, yeah.